Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, dear colleagues, dear friends. My name is Irina Pinchuk. I'm professor of psychiatry, a director of Institute of Psychiatry of Taras Shevchenko National University of Kiev, head of ISSUP Ukraine chapter, national chapter, and it is my great pleasure to welcome you all today. ISSUP Ukraine National Chapter is pleased to invite you to attend the webinar, Mental Health and Substance Use Among University Students in Ukraine During the War, a result of a nationwide survey. The webinar today will specifically focus on the impact of the war in Ukraine on the mental health of students. We will present the result of research on the mental health of student youth with the attention to the problem of substance use among the students during the war. So let me introduce our young speakers today. The first speaker today will Violetta Selezneva. Violetta is Master of Arts in Economics, a PhD student at the Taras Shevchenko National University of Kiev. She is working on the intersection of economy and behavioral science, and her dissertation thesis is dedicated to mental determinants of consumer behavior. Violetta is contributing to an interdisciplinary project of mental health issue of the Ukrainians due to the war. Our second speaker will Natalia Pimenova. Natalia is a specialist of the Institute of Psychiatry of Taras Shevchenko National University of Kiev, lawyer, facilitator of Self-Help Plus and INEP Plus courses. After the presentation, we will have time for the questions. I would like to inform our attendants of the webinar that you can send us your questions to the chat during the presentation. Please find the chat in the GoToWebinar control panel. So, Violetta, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mrs. Irina Pinchuk. Hello, dear attendees. We are very glad that you joined today's webinar. We are also extremely grateful for your interest in the topic of mental health of Ukrainians, because in fact, we have been at the epicenter of a bloody war for already 2.5 years, and it's still very important for us to be heard by international community. Today, my colleague Natalia and I will share with you the results of our nationwide research on the mental conditions of Ukrainian university students during the war. Some of the results of our study relate to substance use. So here we go. Okay. We understand that it is difficult enough to stay focused on the Ukrainian agenda for the third year in a row if you are not Ukrainian and if you live quite far away from hostilities. And that is why we decided to pay attention to the context, because exactly the context in which we live and study sheds light on the scale of the problem of the mental well-being of Ukrainians and particularly of Ukrainian students due to the war. Ukraine has been a sovereign state since 1981. Before the Russian military aggression, Ukraine was the largest country in mainland Europe, and also Ukraine was home to more than 40 million people. But the war came and changed many things in our lives. its hybrid or latent stage began in 2014, resulting in at least 10,000 civilian casualties, the occupation of parts of two Ukrainian regions in east, and the annexation of the Crimean Peninsula. After 2014, more than 1 million Ukrainian families became internally displaced. By the way, both of us, Natalia and I, as well as the moderator of today's webinar, Mrs. Irina Pinchuk, we came from regions that have been occupied by the Russian Federation for the past 10 years. So we are also internally displaced persons. And the full-scale invasion in February 2022 has led to the occupation of almost 20% of the country. According to very conservative estimates by the United Nations, about 20,000 Ukrainian civilians have been wounded and more than 10,500 civilian Ukrainians were killed. Between 37 and 38,000 Ukrainian citizens remain missing, and thousands of civilians are held in Russian captivity, including Ukrainian children. And a little bit more about the consequences of the full-scale invasion. Hundreds of thousands of buildings have been damaged or fully destroyed, including residential ones. About 5 million Ukrainians are registered as internally displaced persons, while more than 1 million people remain living under Russian occupation, facing daily danger. 6.5 million Ukrainians are refugees, including 6 million in European Union countries. And maybe the most distressful, personally for me, more than 19,000 Ukrainian children have been illegally detained and taken to Russian-controlled territories. And according to Russian officials, the number of deported Ukrainian children from Ukraine to Russia is several times higher. There is no accurate statistical data on the amount of Ukrainian population in 2023. However, according to very optimistic estimates, it's about 36 million people. That means that from 2014 to 2023, the amount of permanent Ukrainian population has dropped by at least 9 million. There are also some specific features in the age structure of the Ukrainian population. Even regardless of the war, in the very beginning of 21st century, Ukraine experienced a sharp decline in the birth rate, also known as the demographic pit or the demographic hole. You can see this here on the right side, where the demographic pyramid narrows a little bit. And if you try to compare our demographic pyramids with other countries, for example, with your country, you will probably see that your pyramid is likely much more balanced than Ukrainian one. What does this mean? Ukrainians aged 17 to 24 who represent current Ukrainian students are an abnormally small segment of Ukrainian society. It means that the burden of post-war economic recovery in the perspective of the nearest 5-10 years will mostly fall on this critically small, abnormally small segment of Ukrainian population. The educational sector has suffered significantly, unfortunately. Approximately 3,800 educational institutions have been damaged by shelling and bombing, including 365 completely destroyed educational institutions. A third of all educational institutions do not have proper reliable shelters to ensure the safety of students and universities and school staff during missile attacks. Students living in frontline regions have experienced more than 5,000 hours of air raid alarms since the beginning of the full-scale invasion. This is equivalent to almost 8 months of life. In other words, instead of studying, instead of self-improvement, or simply resting and enjoying life, Ukrainian students have had to spend more than 7 months in general hiding from missile strikes. And next we will show you some real photos depicting our reality in which we live and study. For example, here students are sheltering from a missile attack on Kyiv in the Kyiv metro. The metro is considered as a reliable place to hide from missile attacks, but unfortunately it is only available in a few Ukrainian cities. Over the last 2 years, there have been a lot of life-affirming performances by Ukrainian students. It should be noted that Ukrainian students demonstrate in every possible way their resilience. They show that the war cannot disrupt their future plans, such as celebrating their graduation, passing exams, and continue to get a higher education. Ukrainian students struggle to maintain their routines, such as continuing their studies, passing exams, and defending their thesis and diplomas. For example, this guy, he is a soldier. He decided to defend our country, but in parallel, he defends online his diploma paper from the front line. And the resilience of lecturers and teachers is also amazing. Here on the left side, a university professor joins a video conference from a trench to give a lecture to his students. And on the right, a school teacher came to the ruins of the school to find necessary documents of her students, without which they cannot successfully finish school, successfully pass exams, and then enter universities. But obviously there is also another tragic side when students join Ukrainian army and give their lives at the front line, or become random civilian victims of missile hits. In this photo, students gathered to say goodbye forever to their groupmate, 19-year-old Ivan Rubitva, who voluntarily went to the front and was killed in action. This exhibition is dedicated to those Ukrainian university students who will never receive their diplomas. They could have become scientists, teachers, doctors, lawyers, architects, and made our country a better place, but they were killed. This is damage to the buildings of our alma mater, the Taras Shevchenko National University of Kyiv. The buildings of our university are located in different parts of Kyiv, and all of them suffered because of attacks. By the way, the Ukrainian office of the ISSUP is located at the building of our Institute of Psychiatry, which is a part of the Taras Shevchenko University. This sunny girl was a student of the Faculty of Mathematics of our university. Her name is Yulia Zdanovska. She was a very talented and very promising student, but she was killed by a missile in the early days of the full-scale invasion. And now the street where the Institute of Psychiatry and our student campus are located is named after Yulia. And some said statistical evidence, in total more than 100 current and former students of our university, as well as the university personnel, have been killed since the beginning of the war. Thus, Ukrainian university students are a small and very vulnerable group of the population, but at the same time crucial for the post-war recovery and revitalization of the Ukrainian economy. Therefore, the Ukrainian government, represented by the National Research Foundation, has prioritized Ukrainian students' mental health and initiated a project named Innovative Model of Mental Health Protection of Students During and After the War. Our research team won the grant and has been running this project already for second year in a row. This is our research team. It consists of 8 people and includes psychiatrists, psychologists, economists, and a lawyer. And also it should be noted that within the project there is very tight interdisciplinary interaction because the problem of mental health disorders among students in wartime goes beyond the healthcare context, and it is gaining a broader socio-economic dimension because it begins to hinder the development and the accumulation of human capital, which is key for the post-war reconstruction of Ukraine. Our research consists of 2 components. The first part involved collecting primary data through surveys and focus groups. Here we measured the prevalence of different mental health symptoms. Also, we identified risk groups, and additionally, we determined the deepest needs of university students concerning psychological assistance. And the second part, the second component, involves developing a model for the prevention and recovery of the mental health of Ukrainian university students. And our team is working on this part right now. We conducted this survey in 2 waves, pilot and main study. The pilot study took place 3 months after the start of the full-scale invasion. Data were collected between April and June 2022 using an anonymous and confidential online survey. The main study was conducted in 2023 and included twice as many respondents. Here you can also see which screening tools we used. The primary care post-traumatic stress disorder screen, the patient health questionnaire for diagnosing depression, the generalized anxiety disorder questionnaire, the insomnia severity index, and in the main study we added CRAFT screening tool to assess substance abuse and perceived stress scale instead of SCOFE and CAGE scales in the pilot study. Here you may see the most traumatic events among Ukrainian university students. In the pilot study, 2/3 of all the respondents indicated traumatic experiences related to the full-scale war, and in the main study, this number increased to 78%. The death of loved ones became the most common traumatic event among respondents. The second most common event was the direct experience of being under shelling or bombing. Additionally, at least 1 in 10 respondents reported witnessing the death or injury of someone. And also our studies included respondents with experiences of occupation, experiences of Russian captivity, and also victims of physical and sexual violence. Approximately 2/3 of our respondents rated their mental state at a low level, and only 11% rated their mental condition as satisfactory. This section compares the symptoms of mental states in the pilot and main studies. We can see a significant increase in the prevalence of depression symptoms in 2023. Almost 86% of Ukrainian university students had symptoms of depression of different severity in 2023. Also, you may see a noticeable decline in the prevalence of post-traumatic stress disorder and anxiety disorder. This slide shows a breakdown of depression symptoms by severity. After 3 months of the full-scale invasion, I mean pilot study, 1/3 of students had minimal depression symptoms, but in 2023, the main study, only 14% of students had minimal depression, while more than half of all our respondents exhibited symptoms of severe or moderately severe depression. And the breakdown of anxiety disorder symptoms shows a shift towards minimal symptoms of anxiety disorder in 2023 compared with 2022. Here is some evidence of suicidal behavior risk among Ukrainian students. 37% of respondents felt that life is not worthy to continue. Almost 35% wished to die, and 7% made a real suicide attempt. Now let's move on to the results of substance use disorder screening. I will begin and my colleague Natalia will continue. In the pilot study, we only tested for alcohol abuse symptoms, while in the main study we decided to expand a bit our analysis, and we used a tool to identify general substance abuse by CRAFT tool. The results were practically the same. Approximately 15 to 16% of respondents had such symptoms. And we found some other relevant studies on substance use among Ukrainian adolescents or students or youth in general. A couple of them were published before the full-scale invasion. And also we found 2 studies based on recent data collected after the beginning of the full-scale war. And you may see the key points, for example, according to the national reports on drug and alcohol situation in Ukraine, almost 19% of Ukrainians aged 15 to 24 used psychoactive substance at least once in life. And almost half of them were exactly aged 19-24. This is an approximately period of Ukrainian student youth. And due to another national level estimates, a bit more than 20% of the Ukrainian adolescents exposed to the war were screened positive for medium risk or higher of substance use disorder. And with this, I finish my part. Thank you very much. I give the floor to the next speaker, my colleague Natalia Pimenova. Natalia, please continue. I will help you to shift slides.
Thank you, Violetta. Regarding the results of the main study on substance use, a significant majority of students reported having used substance in the past year. Specifically, 66.4% of university students indicated alcohol use, while 11.5% reported using other substances. Half of the participants used alcohol on more than 40 days over the past year. Additionally, 161 study participants reported using drugs within the last year. Next slide, please. Violet, next slide, please. Oh, thank you. The distribution of participants based on the number or days of substance use in the past year is shown on this slide. There you can see, and Violetta, next slide. 57% of participants were found to be at medium risk for substance use according to their CRAFT scores, while 12.7% were identified as being at high risk. Next slide, please. Based on the results of the 2023 study, the top 5 socio-demographic factors affecting CRAFT risk score were identified as follows. Multiplied trauma. Individuals who experienced multiplied traumatic events such as assault, loss, accidents, or sexual trauma tended to have higher CRAFT risk scores, indicated more intensive substance consumption. Need for professional support. Students who required professional support possibly indicated underlying mental health challenges or coping difficulties showed higher CRAFT risk scores. Age. Older students were more likely to use substances. Stopped education. Students who had stopped their education or were on academic leave showed increased substance use compared to those who were actively pursuing their studies. Living alone. Individuals who lived alone with a partner or with a pet were associated with higher substance use, whereas those living with relatives tended to have lower substance use level. Additionally, students who had been relocated multiple times within Ukraine, abroad, or back to Ukraine also showed increased substance use behavior. Considerably, those who reported better well-being before experiencing war-related events tended to have lower levels of substance use. Next slide, please. In March-April 2024, 6 focus groups were held, 4 focus groups with students of higher education and 2 focus groups with teachers. Students and teachers were selected to participate in the focus groups. Both groups were asked the same questions. Focus group participants discussed 4 key issues. What barriers prevent students from seeking psychological or psychiatric help? What stereotypes about receiving psychological or psychiatric help are common among students? Does your educational institution take measures to support on the mental health of student youth? What mental health support service for students do you think should be implemented at the educational institution level? From the feedback received from both groups, several key messages emerge. Group teachers' perspective. Prevention measure. Teacher emphasized the importance of implementing preventive strategies with universities. Educational initiatives. There is a strong demand for ongoing educational activities such as lecture, seminars, webinars, online courses, and conference focus on psychological health support. Mental health screening. Teachers advocated for the introduction of express mental health screening for students. This proactive measure aims to identify and address potential issues before they escalate. What about students' perspective, reducing stigma? Students highlighted concerns about stigma and the lack of understanding regarding where and how to seek help for mental health issues. Psychoeducation. There is a significant desire among students for more psychoeducation information and awareness about mental health issues and available resources. Psychological support. Students expected a high need for psychological support, indicated a desire for accessible and effective support system. This message reflects a consensus on the need for comprehensive mental health support within university settings, encompassing both proactive educational efforts and responsive support service aimed at reducing stigma and improving mental well-being among students. Next slide, please. After receiving feedback from both groups, we decided to offer 2 programs to the students, Self-Help Plus and INEP. Self-Help Plus, developed by WHO, involves group stress management sessions conducted offline in groups of up to 30 people over 5 weeks with 1 session per week. The sessions are led by supervised non-specialist facilitators who undergo brief training and utilize pre-recorded audio and an illustrated guide doing what matters in time of stress to teach stress management skills. This program is designed for adults experiencing stress regardless of their location or circumstances, and proven effective in reducing psychological distress and prevention the onus of mental disorders. Whatever INEP, on the other hand, is an online course spanning 6 weeks. Its objective is to foster positive changes in students' knowledge and attitudes regarding issues related to substance use prevention. Next slide, please. Starting from March 2022, a scientific research project titled Study of the Implementation of the Introduction to Evidence-Based Prevention INEP online course, a feasibility study in university setting in Ukraine, Peru, and Czechia, has been underway. This project involves specialized from the Institute of Psychiatry at Shevchenko National University of Kyiv, collaboration with Karls University in Prague, and Peru University, and founded by ISSUP. As part of this study, the entire INEP course, including its online platform and the EUPC handbook, has been translated and adapted into Ukrainian. All electronic presentation for the 10 lectures of the course were also voiced in Ukrainian. The course was delivered by 3 certified facilitators who complete the INEP Plus training: Irina Pinchuk, Stanislav Chumak, and Natalia Pimenova. In total, there are 5 certified in INEP Plus facilitators in Ukraine. Please, next slide. Okay, 45 students from various faculties, psychology, medicine, social work, journalism, lawyer, and economics, who expressed interest in piloting the INEP, were invited to participate. They were divided into 3 groups and commented the 6 weeks course. 31 students successfully completed the course along with all assessment tools. The recruitment process involved coordination with faculty teachers who were invited to familiarize themselves with the course and optionally participate in a separate group from teachers. Special assessment tools previously successful in the UPC ADAPT project were utilized to gather feedback from students. Overall, the feedback from students was predominantly positive. Selected reviews are highlighted on this slide. Please, next slide. The project was originally designed to be delivered to students through blended learning featuring 3 online sessions with trainers. However, the course considered with the priority of intense challenge on Ukraine's energy infrastructure between October and December 2022. This led to prolonged power outages and extended disconnection of the internet, making it impossible for the majority of students to connect at the scheduled times. As a result, the course spontaneously transformed from a blended learning format to a standalone course. Despite these challenges, a total of 12 sessions were conducted instead of the planned 9, with 2 sessions being prematurely terminated due to direct Shivan incidents. Fortunately, the online nature of the course allowed students to complete the training at alternative times when internet connection will restart. Next slide, please. The INEP course has been integrated into the practical training program in psychiatry for second year master's students in psychology. The first group, consisting of 13 students, began their practical training on February 6, 2023. Next slide, please. The first and very important stage involves recognizing the paramount importance of students' mental health, which significantly influences their productivity in both academic students and daily life activities. Recent studies have indicated a notable prevalence of symptoms related to mental disorders among Ukrainian students, especially in the initial months of the full-scale conflict. This underscores an urgent requirement for decisive measures to support students' mental well-being. Implementing programs focused on addiction prevention and addressing other mental health disorders is crucial. Not only for the immediate well-being of students, but also for safeguarding the future of the nation. These efforts are essential in ensuring that students receive the necessary support to navigate these challenging times effectively and sustainably contribute to society. Please, next slide. Thank you, Lilith. Colleagues, I'd like to share articles from our research that have already been published. You can access them from the provided links in the chat. I don't see links in the chat. Quadro. Okay, maybe right. Additionally, we have another articles that has been accepted for publication in a journal, and we anticipate its release soon. Next slide. Oh, thank you for link in the chat. Oh, thank you for your attention. I finished our presentation.
Thank you very much, Natalia, and I invite Violeta to open the camera. Thank you very much for your very interesting and emotional presentations. Now we have a time for questions. Thank you very much to our participants who sent us your questions. Now we received the question, and the first question, I don't know, maybe this question to the Violeta. Is there any data on substance use disorders among the students in other countries? And how do they differ from your result?
Do you hear me well? Yes, I switched
Yes.
so on my microphone. It's a good question. We searched for relevant studies to compare their results with ours. However, there is a lack of scientific literature relevant to our topic, specifically focused on substance use and specifically focused on substance use among university students, because the topic is very narrow. And in this regard, our research somehow fills this gap. We found a recent article about substance abuse among university students in Egypt. If you are interested, I can share a link with you a little bit later. And this is research of 2022. And according to findings, the prevalence of drug abuse was 3%. If I'm not mistaken, for alcohol 4%, and also about 4 or 5% for tranquilizers and hashish. Also, we found another study dated by 2022. This is a study on substance use among university students in South Africa. And the main findings revealed a substance use prevalence rate of almost 63% among university students of South Africa. But also we discussed this issue within our team, and it should be noted that younger generation is more prone to substance use compared to other age groups. We examined more than 10 different countries in the Global Health Data Exchange database, and we found that this trend is common, regardless of whether the country was involved in military conflicts or not. Moreover, for instance, in the Balkan countries affected by war, the prevalence of substance use among young population was noticeably lower than in consistently neutral, peaceful countries. So it's discussable questions and a little bit controversial.
Thank you much,
I hope I
Violetta.
answered it.
Thank you very much. Now we have a lot of questions. The next questions about the INEP course. What difficulties did you encounter during the implementation of the INEP Plus? And can you say something about the procedure of the implementation, this course in the program? Maybe to Natalia about these questions.
Yes, that's very good questions. Thank you so much. The main difficulty in implementation was the presence of war in our country. Colleagues from other countries could not even believe in the possibility of implementing this project in war conditions. The experience of Ukraine has shown that even in the most critical condition, there are educational programs that make it possible not stop the process. As we saw, the students not only completed their INEP course, but we are able to graduate with excellence. Thank you.
Thank you, Natalia. Maybe I add about the procedure implementation, the INEP Plus. We started to pilot project with our student from the Faculty of Psychology, and then we received the positive response from the students about this plus, and we started the bureaucratic procedure to implement this course for the program in the psychology in our university. This had a time during maybe 9-8 months, and official first course started, that Natalia said, in February 2023. And now this is the official module in the program for the psychological student in our university. So the next questions about the I don't know, to Violeta or Natalia, did you ask the respondents about ways of overcoming difficulties in wartime, and what mental health services among Ukrainian students are the most common during the war? Who will respond to this question about the...
I will try. Mrs. Irina Pinchuk, please repeat, because I didn't catch something with
Did you ask the respondents about ways of overcoming the difficulties of wartime, and what mental health services among Ukrainian students are the most common during the war?
Okay, I will repeat your question to fix that I understood you correctly. You asked about the ways of overcoming psychological difficulties among students during the war, and also about the mental health services which are widespread among Ukrainian students. Yes?
Yes,
okay,
yes.
Yes, we both our studies and pilots and main study included questions about the ways of overcoming stress, overcoming psychological and mental health difficulties, and also we asked about the most popular mental health services among students during the war, and I will now I opened our results of this questionnaire about in the pilot study which took place in 2022. About 61 of respondents answered no on the question, did you seek support from your relatives or friends to overcome mental health difficulties? And in the main study, the number of such answer decreased to 55. Maybe if I will handle this tool, I mean our conference platform, I can even share with you the diagram how the answers modified from 2022 to 2023. But anyway, more than 80% of our respondents reported that they do not consult mental health professional during the war, and even do not try to get any professional help. And those ones who are receiving professional help, or not professional, just any psychological help, these students mentioned visiting a psychologist as the most common mental health service. About approximately 70% of them answered that they received professional help from psychologists. About a third of our respondents who are receiving professional help reported using medications prescribed by a doctor. 31% reported visiting a psychotherapist, and 24% reported visiting psychiatrists. And I will try to share this diagram with you, but maybe not right now, exactly later, okay?
Okay, Violeta. Thank you very much. You can see the next question about the plan, how you plan to use the result of this research. I don't know, maybe Natalia.
Good question about the plan, yeah?
How do you plan to use the result of your research?
Yeah, thank you. Well, no, but at first we are currently working intensively on developing a model for prevention and protecting students' mental health at universities. This model will include psychoeducation, screening, psychological consultation, development of a psychological service at the university, and, if necessary, specialized assistance. Second, we will prepare analytical and informational materials for decision makers. We hope to change educational programs for students and faculty members and implement models on mental health and drug use. And the next of the results of our research will be included in scientific articles. And of course, this is a presentation of the results at scientific conferences, round tables, and webinars.
Okay, thank you, Natalia. Very interesting that we think to inform and prepare the analytical information materials for the people who make a decision. Thank you very much. Violeta, you would like to continue or not?
I wanted to share the diagram of the most popular mental health services among students, but this the conference platform doesn't allow to share screenshots, so maybe not this time. But the main things I articulated before.
And thank you, Violeta. And I think we have a very little time. Maybe the last question for you both. What do you think, your opinion, why the percentage of substance use disorders, the data of substance use disorder, lower than the mental health and other disorders? If we compare with post-traumatic stress disorder, with depression, with anxiety, what do you think the young researchers, young youth, students?
Okay. I think it's a question of availability and accessibility, because illegal substances are not very accessible in Ukraine. I think this is the most sharp explanation. But also, I think that Ukrainian students shows resilience, and also, if I'm not mistaken, I have seen one study which the result of which showed that the substance use in war-affected countries was less than substance use of countries that are not affected by war, and also even in the boundaries of one country, the regions the mostly affected by hostilities, the prevalence of substance use there was less than substance use in other regions where people not faced hostilities on a daily basis, but faced other difficulties in life. They can be internally displaced people. They maybe cannot find a job or have some problems with their academic performances, etc.
Okay, Violeta, thank you very much. I am sorry we have enough time. This is very important, the response from this question from the economist and from the lawyer. This is not the psychologist, psychiatrist. I think if we, this is very interesting question, and I think we will continue discuss about it in our teams. And now I would like to thank all our participants, our webinar. First of all, our speakers, our young scientists, Natalia and Violeta, and I would like to say thank you, our technical support, Poggio. Thank you very much. And all who participate in our webinar, take care and stay healthy. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.